Hello, everybody. Dr. Rick dropping in on you. Look, I hope that you guys had a great weekend. I know that a lot of people are celebrating the Memorial Day weekend. For those of you out there celebrating, enjoy yourself, have a blast, be safe. Look, this is going to be real quick. I just want to really touch on something that I think is immensely important that we tend to miss in everything that we talk about, we want. This sense of entitlement comes from something, and I want to talk about that. I'm going to give you three steps that are vital to achieving any level of success. And there's so much to this panoramic experience we call life. But I want to give you something, and I'm going to tell you one of the greatest reasons people fail to achieve the things that they desire to have. We can talk about a bunch of things: impatience, long-term lack of long-term commitment, lack of discipline, a bunch of other things. But at the bottom, in the core of things, one of the things that I have seen over the course of my life, something that I have spoken on consistently, is the circumvention of the process. People don't want the process. The process is painful. The process is uncomfortable. The process is laboring. The process stretches you. The process challenges you. And nobody wants the process. Everybody wants the promise. Everybody wants the prize, but nobody wants the process. And I'm going to tell you something. One thing that I can tell you with 100% certainty from an experiential observation, from years and years of study and research, from sitting up and learning from some of the best and some of the things that I've been able to do and accomplish, the one thing I can tell you is the process always precedes the promise. The process always precedes the prize. You cannot circumvent the process and obtain the promise. You may get an illusion of it if you try to skirt around it, but it will be short-lived, and it will never be truly in your grasp because you did not earn it. You did not move through it. You did not sustain it. There has to be an endurance of the process before there can be an attainment of the prize or the promise. And one of the things I see is in this world of entitlement is I believe I should have it, but I don't want to have to earn it. I don't want to have to put in the time, the discipline, the effort, the focus, the commitment. Let me tell you something. The biggest challenge for people who join into something isn't whether they have the resources. Let me tell you something. This world is designed in an abundance of resources. God designed this world to be a world of abundance. The idea of scarcity and lack is a mental state of mind that robs you of opportunities, that robs you of a commitment to go the distance because you don't believe it's there. You don't believe it's possible. You believe that somebody else has it, so you can't have it. You spend a lot of your time, even if you are chasing it, trying to compete with someone else because you think the only way to get it is to get what they got. And you don't understand. You're laboring in a misunderstanding of how things work. But the first thing that you got to do is understand that I must go the distance. It's not defined by your resources. It's not defined by where you start. It's not defined by who you. All these things impact you. Don't get me wrong. Your experiences are lacing the paradigm and the framing by which you're going to operate, but you're not stuck there because you have the ability to explore outside of the walls of the confines of the construct of the paradigms that you're operating in. You're not stuck in anything. Your mind has the capacity to explore far beyond the box that you're living in. So you're not stuck there. So it's not resources. It's not who you know. It's not where you come from. All those things are going to shape who you are, but you get to determine what you become. You don't choose your parents. You don't choose whether you're born into poverty or you're born into wealth. You don't choose what schools you initially have access to, but as you grow older, you develop an autonomous capacity to think for yourself. Even when somebody's telling you you can't do it, you have the right to sit up and say, the hell I can't. Yes, I can. You have the right to sit up and say there's something outside of this box I'm living in. And so it's none of, well, if it's none of those things, then what is it, Doc? What is it? It is, are you willing to go the distance? At the end of the day, it's going to be, are you willing to go the distance? Are you willing to anchor yourself into what you are saying you're committed to do? People talk about commitment all day, but aren't committed. People talk about commitment to marriage. People talk about commitment to their careers, commitment to their visions, commitment to their dreams, and all of these things. And the moment that something challenges them, the moment that they meet a difficult situation, the moment that it doesn't look right, the moment they experience delay, the moment that fear presents itself, all of these things become something that pushes them back. The person who wins isn't the smartest person. The person who wins isn't the person who started in the greatest position. The person who wins, who simply sits up and says, you know what, the only way to stop me is I die. I'm either going to get it or I'm going to die trying. I'm going the distance. Here are three things that I'm going to give you that you've got to have. There are a bunch of other things. And when I'm working with my clients, I give them, you know, a comprehensive exploration of who they are, a comprehensive presentation of what they need to do, because you don't get what you want in this life, contrary to what everybody's telling you. If you want it, just say you want it. That's not how faith works. The law of attraction is just another way of defining the concept and principle and the physics of faith. But let me tell you something. It's not what you want, it's who you are. You get what you are, so then you get who you are able to become. Getting something that you've never had before is a process of saying, this is where I'm at. That's who I need to be in order to have it, in order to do it, in order to excel at it. I have to become that person. So these are the things I need to do, and I need to be committed to it. I need to trust the process. I need to be willing to stay into it. So here it is. Number one, be intentional. Life is changing. Life is evolving. The world is moving. You're never static. You are becoming something. The problem is the vast majority of people aren't in control of what they're becoming because they aren't intentional. They're not waking up every day with a desired uh, point of reference. They don't have the capacity or the ability or the willingness or the understanding to sit up and say, I'm going to do this today, this today, this today, this today, because that's what's going to get me there. They're just waking up and they're rolling with the punches. They're just trying to get through the day. They're in survival mode, or they're simply operating by default. Survival mode is, I'm just trying to get through this next moment. I got bills due. This bill is due. This bill is due. This bill is due. Then that's due. And then this is going on. I'm trying to keep this job. That's survival mode. Default is wake up every day. Everything's okay. This is how it always been. This is what's always done. I show up and I do what everybody else does, and I'm going to get pretty much what everybody else gets. You don't get the things that are considered exceptional, or the things by your own definition that are phenomenal, by doing what everyone else does. To get what most people don't have, you got to do what most people don't do. And that's step outside of the box and go the distance. So the first thing is be intentional. Be intentional about what you listen to. I was telling the guys yesterday in the cigar shop that the radio in my vehicle, my SUV, hasn't been on in over a year. Why? Because if I'm not putting the music in and controlling what I'm hearing, then I'm at the mercy of whatever the programmer at the station is playing. And I understand the importance of frequency. I understand the importance of what flows into my gates, eyes, and ears. And I understand how that works in programming my subconscious, and my subconscious controls 96% of my behavior. So then I'm going to control. So I control my thought processes, and I use that time as a quiet space to contemplate, to let my mind explore. And that's how I move. But you've got to be very intentional about what you listen to, what you read, what you watch. All these things are going to have an impact on you. And let everything have a purpose. It doesn't have to be a serious purpose, but it needs to have a purpose. Everything should have meaning. You have 86,400 seconds in a day. How you use those 86 for are going to determine the outcome of your life. It's really that simple. Now, so you've got to understand that there's no such thing as a casual moment. There's no such thing as an empty moment. There's no such thing as it wasn't really that big of a deal. Everything has a place and a time. And it's not all about how hard you grind. It's about what level of focus, energy, and frequency are you creating with each moment? Is it a smile? Is it joy? Is it with a family member? Is it a loved one? Is it in developing and building a new relationship with someone? Is it in sustaining a beautiful marriage that's lasted for years? Every second should have some beauty to it, because it's an investment that you don't get back in time. You get it back in what you did with the time. And you've got to understand that a life is going to be very frustrating, because you're going to keep getting things you don't like and not realizing it's the return on your investment. Second, you need to know your why. I'm telling you now, I don't care if you hide in your comfort zone or you get out there and you go after life with everything you have. you're going to have moments of discomfort. That's the crazy thing. No matter how much you try to avoid the process, you still end up in the mire of delay, in the mire of something scary, in the mire of loss and frustration and disappointment and hurt and pain. And if you don't have something that anchors you in the moment, you will run from it. You will retreat. You will go back. You can go anywhere that I've spoken in the past. And and I'm being introduced, and as I'm walking out on the stage, one of the things you're going to hear is no surrender, no retreat. Why? Because it's one of the core mindsets and principles of how I'm moving. No surrender, no retreat. If I started, I'm finishing it, or I'm dying. That is period. It's not, and there are delays. There are delays. I've experienced delays that the average person would have given up a long time ago. But what I tell you, I have yet to get to a point, no matter how long it takes, to eventually wear it. And the beautiful thing about the way God designed this world is that if I set up and say, this is when it's supposed to happen, and it doesn't happen then, but I stick with it and I go through it and I push through it and I endure the process and I don't give in, when I get it, I get multiple times more than what I initially thought I would get when I thought I would get it whenever it was in the past. In other words, the time that you invest in something beyond the time of expectation has meaning, power, and value to it. Don't think delay does not mean denial. Delay often tests your resolve to have what you want. Delay will test your commitment to finishing, to being everything you need to be. Don't let delay knock you off your game. Don't let frustration knock you off your game. And one of the things that most people are most fearful of is failure. And because who hasn't been told failure is not an option? Failure is not an option. Failure, oh my God. We are so afraid of failure that we fail by default and don't even realize it. When we don't actualize our full potential, that's failure. When we don't stand up and go after something that's literally been implanted in us as a vision, that's failure. When we sit up and we settle for mediocrity, when we know greatness resides in us, but we don't go because of what might happen, it's failure. You don't have to try it to fail. Matter of fact, not trying is the one way to guarantee failure. And let me tell you something, everybody fails. Not failing isn't the point. It is failing forward that you want to do. You want to sit up and say, I'm setting this goal for 100, and you reach for it and you go for it. You get 35. You didn't get the 100, but you got 35. You gave it everything you got and you got 35, and you're sitting up and everything around us in this culture says you failed. No, I have 35 that I didn't have before I started. Now I'm going to set out and I'm going to go for 100 again. This time I got 45. Now guess what I have? 45 and 35 is what? 80. I'm 20% off of what I was shooting for. It took me 2 tries, but I got there. The problem is we want it in one shot. We want a quick win. That's why the lottery places are just packed, because we don't want to take the long road. We don't want to take the road of surety. We'll take that. I'm going to take the shot in the dark and just hope. I'm going to take a little bit of this and I'm just going to hope for something big. Now, here's what I want to leave you with. So you got know your why, be intentional. And here's the one that we talked about already, but we're going to revisit again. Be committed to go the distance. You got to endure the process. You have to endure the process. One of the biggest problems we have is we don't want people skirt the process. The one thing we're consistent in is skirting the process, avoiding the process, circumventing the process, moving around it. I don't want to deal with it. It's too painful. It's too uncomfortable. It's too uncertain. It's all these things that make me feel a certain way. And people come to me all the and I say, well, have you tried this or have you tried that? And it's, yeah, I tried it, doc, but it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable. And it's like, wait a minute. What you don't understand is when they tell you it's uncomfortable, what they're saying is it's unfamiliar. See, it's pulled me out of a place that I'm aware of. It's pulled me out of a place where I pretty much can predict how my day is going to go, even if it's not the day I want. You got 85% of people in this country wake up and go to a job they hate every freaking day, and nobody's looking to change it. Why? Because they can predict it. They would rather deal with the predicted pain and discomfort than to take a shot and go out to create something that they can look at and say, this is very close to what I was always wanting. This is what I thought it would be like. I'm going to tell you, not being a business owner is not as glamorous as most people make it out to be. It's a lot of challenges. It's a lot of setbacks. It's a lot of adjustments. It's a lot of ups and downs. It's a lot of trying to predict and project what your market is going to do. It's a bunch of different stuff. But when you wake up every day and you're doing it for you, and you're building something that you can leave your progeny, your offspring, and you're sitting up and you're touching lives, and you can look at the lives you're touching, and that has value to you, then it makes it worth the while to get up and do. See the thing I do when I reach the point of absolute financial sovereignty, where I literally know I'm good and my kids are good, and I've got everything set up the way that I want it set up, I will still be waking up at the same time, doing the same thing until the day I die. Why? Because I'm living in my purpose. I'm doing what I love. I'm going to do it until we weren't meant. This whole industrial revolution changed how we operate, and it took a big part of the quality of our lives, because what we don't realize is when we retire and we stop having meaning in our lives, and it just becomes about what am I going to do with my idle time, you start cognitive decline. You start to develop a lot of other different illnesses that come along with it. And you start to actually have less of a quality of life. And now it's just surviving your golden years, when actually you're supposed to be a wealth of value and highly instrumental in the bringing along of the next generation, because of your experience, because of your wisdom, because you're effective, and you should still be adding value to the world. We came up with, okay, we got to usher in a certain group of people. We got to move them along at a certain time. We need to move them out of the way so we can usher in the next group of people, so we can keep this cycle working. And so we came up with forced retirement. We came up with a certain retirement age, and everybody's shooting for that. At 65, start to look at some of the people who are really taking care of themselves now at 65 and 75, and look how they look. Do they look like they should be sitting around somewhere just doing something, or just saying, I don't have to do? No, let your life have me. I'm not saying work yourself to the bone, because by that time you shouldn't be. But what you should be doing is doing something you love, and it should have meaning, and it should be helping someone else. It should be touching someone's life. That's what has to happen. So then you've got to be intentional. You got to know your why, and you've got to be committed to going the distance. You've got to do the work. You've got to fulfill the process in order to have the promise. You've got to sit up. Process always precedes promise. Process always precedes the prize. Don't think you can have the prize without first executing the process. And here's the thing. It's not exclusive. There's this idea when we take on the mindset of scarcity and lack that only certain people get to play by certain rules. No, the rule of faith is always in play. Whether you want to call it the law of attraction, whether you want to call it the law of manifestation, whether you want to call it absolute faith, whatever I'm telling you is, when you set your mind to do something and you give yourself to it, it has already started to be. You simply have to move it through multiple dimensions to bring it to yourself. Everything happens away from prayer on to everything else is moving through dimensions and traveling back to you. You get a return on your investment in your prayer. You get a return on your investment in your thoughts. You get a return on your investment in how you spend your money. You get a return on your investment, how you engage every relationship. It's going out and it's coming back. You can call it the law of karma. You can call it the universal law of reciprocity. But what I'm telling you is, if you get up and you put in something, it's coming back in like form. It maybe not the same way, but it's coming back in equal value. And we've got to learn how to judge value outside of the dollar. Because if we make the dollar the sole focus, we will get frustrated. But when you start to realize, sometimes your blessing comes back in a thank you. Sometimes your blessing comes back in somebody saying, hey, I got a speaking engagement for you. Sometimes your blessing comes back, hey, I got a new client for you. Sometimes the blessing comes back and somebody has written this unbelievable review about how you change your life. Sometimes the lesson comes back, and this is my personal experience of somebody just dropping in on one of your videos out of the clear blue and said, 2 years ago, I was going to kill myself. And I just happened to come across your video. Do you know how many times I've heard, I just happened to come across your video and somebody came into a life transforming for me? What if I'd have woke up that day and said, man, I'm tired, I don't feel like it, it's been rough. And I woke up with an old war is me mindset and mentality. That person may not be here. And you got to realize you have the same equal capacity to touch lives. Maybe not in the way that I do it, or not in the way that person. That's the beauty of who you are. Your uniqueness in this world is what gives you value. Nobody can do what you do the way you do it. God designed you that way for a purpose. We sit on it. We work so hard to become like everybody else. I forget it. I don't know if it was man, if it was Norman Vincent Peale, but George Bernard Shaw, but one of them said that everybody is born unique in this world, but the vast majority of us will die carbon copies. Why? Because we've bought into the idea that I need to be like them. I need to do what they're doing. It sounds good. It looks good. And you're missing out on the beauty of who you are. That's my challenge, to discover yourself, because in yourself is everything that you ever desired, everything you wanted. God planted in you. Those desires aren't just abstract. If you have something that's pulling at you, it's planted in your spiritual DNA. It's not just happening. If you can conceive it in your mind, that's God's evidence that it's possible, and probably God's evidence that he desires it for you. If it's a good thing and it's going to bless you and bless other people, it can't be withheld from you. You may have to work for it. You may have to go hard in the paint for it. You may have to be resilient for it. You may have to push through some difficult moments for it, but I guarantee you it will not be withheld. That's my challenge to you. Start believing in the thing that you've been suppressing. Be committed. Go the distance. Endure the process. And the promise and the prize are inevitable. That's where I'm going to leave you at. Look, for those of you who want to work with me, or those of you who want to get into some of the online courses that I have, there's some information in the description box. I would love to work with you. There's some things that are going on right now that way you can get with me and work with me. If you want to do that, I invite you to it. If you want to change your life, why aren't you talking to me? Why aren't you tapping in to somebody who can expedite your travel, your process? That's the beauty of this thing, that people out there that literally are gifted and experts at helping people achieve things. And I want to help you. So look in the description box, but whatever you do, make up in your mind that you're going the distance. And as I always say, I live my life on full so that when I leave this place, I die on E. I challenge you to do the same thing. On that note, I'm out of here. You guys have an unbelievable remainder of your day.